Hey everyone, welcome. This is the first video blog on our series of episodes that will talk about network automation, introducing you to all kinds of members of the community from Network Automation Heroes. And I want to give you an introduction on the topics that you're going to be watching here and also some of the core concepts. So one of these concepts I already spoke about in the introduction is about configuration change orchestration. It's a generic word, I know. It's these words, right? So let's break it down and what it all means and how it will allow you to automate any type of change, any type of network from any type of vendor, right? So there's a key concept in there that you are able to build your configuration in jobs as designed. Now let's talk about this stuff because really that's the heart of the core process where a lot of people fail, right? A lot of people focus on executing jobs towards the network. How do you automate? How do you log into devices? What kind of protocols do you use? All that kind of stuff. It's basically not so relevant. It's far more relevant that you actually are building and preparing your configs and jobs in a way that reflects the specific design that you've made for that network. And so the concept of design-driven configs and jobs really comes from the fact that there is always a design, and design can be broken down into high-level and low-level design. And what we allow you to do is use the technology that we'll offer to you to standardize and to build your own specific low-level design rules through a GUI, so there's no coding or scripting required. And you can create your own configs and jobs with the specific rules that you have set into your design. So it allows you to build up the database and populate the parameters. If you instantiate new customers and new services, that will all be built and instantiated according to your design rules. So nothing preset, because every network is different. Right? So you need to be able to be flexible in that. But let's not go into much detail here. We'll have separate sessions about this. But the ability to build your configs according to your design rules is a key concept, because if you look at the outages and the problems that you see into production networks, is that there is a variety of implementation methods possible. If you are a Cisco engineer, you know that there are maybe 10 different ways to do stuff. So the command line and the OS syntax allows you to do a lot of different things, which is great from an engineering perspective and definitely great from a troubleshooting perspective. But when you actually want to have stable, agile, easy to be automated networks, you want to have actually your network to reflect the original design that you had in mind. Now, this is not an ideal case, and I'm not saying that it's the only way. You also need to deal with these snowflake networks. But let's just focus here on the concept that you can do this, right? So you can instantiate sites, customer nodes, services specific to your design. And we've built this framework that allows you to do that. And I'm going to introduce you to Eric IJsbeert. He's the brain behind building this framework over the last 15 years. And originally, in its first releases, we were only able to basically populate configs from a design perspective. Right? So we have something called design modeling, service modeling, network modeling, IPAM modeling, all this kind of stuff. And you will model your specific design, whether you have a ring structure, whether you're using carry Ethernet network, data center network, or firewall network that has spine leaves, it has tree architecture. You will model this stuff, and then by instantiating your specific models, you will build new sites, new locations, new CPEs, tie in services across these nodes, and that's automatically be possible to do, right? So that was the first release of the framework. And once we move forward, customers say, yeah, I also want you to deal with the existing network. How can you operate it in such a way that you can guarantee that whatever you deploy is not actually causing outages on the existing implementation? Because there's lots of networks, in place, and you have to deal with that. So we needed to find a way to retrieve at runtime the state information of the devices. So that's where we found a way to actually parse at runtime the configs and the jobs, whether this is on a PE or on a CPE or on a ring, to validate its state before you push it into the device. So let's not go too much into detail here, but the design thing is one of the core concepts behind standardizing and automating networks. And One of the key things that I've seen over the last 15 years is that there's a variety of implementation, because if you look at the process, how it's been done over decades, the way that people make a design, and they use Visio, then they build a low-level design, which may be in Word, use an Excel sheet where to store information, and then they use maybe Notepad even to create a config and put it onto some kind of device. But in the end, there's a lot of manual effort then to push it onto the device, and the way it gets implemented has all this variety of implementations. You see a diversity of configs. Even if people say, I have two identical configurations on a redundant node, on a redundant core router, then we say, okay, let's see them. We have tools to analyze them, and we see the differences straight away. You want to be actually able to prevent this, right? So the way to do this is by building your configs according to your design rule. So every site, every node, every change reflects what you would like it to be. Now, in the final step, as I said, we want to ensure that whatever we deploy or push or sync up to the network is not actually causing outages on your existing network. Right, so this is a bit of a high-level process. So if we talk about this concept of configuration change orchestration, there is basically 5 processes that are involved. So let's talk about this. From the bottom up, let's see if you can recognize if this is the same in your organization. From an existing network point of view, it has been implemented with tools from element managers and CLI, or however, even you have built your own scripts in Python or in Perl, even if you're from an older age. But you want to be able to first retrieve the state information from the network. It starts maybe with backing up configurations, storing them, diffing them, see what has been happening, so you don't have to go to the CLI manually to get the state information. So, config validation. Second step is that you want to be able to push changes towards the network and use this validated information. Right? So the push automation, let's call it job automation, is where a lot of the market is focusing on trying to get standards in place, which are never adhered to, because every vendor has its own proprietary way of implementing these, not standards, but they have additional features, and they involve even different syntaxes and different way to configure this. But the job automation piece is just one aspect. But there are 3 other processes which relate to this design-driven config concept. Is that you want to be able to generate the configuration before you push it, right? So job generation, we call it, right? So validation, be able to push it to the network, but what you push to the network, you want to have automatically being generated. Think of it as having an Excel sheet, and you put data in and it will merge it. Now, we do this in a far more intelligent way, and we're going to talk about this. But the 4th step is, before you can generate it, you want to actually store the data, and you want to store the logic in a way that you can have your own logical administration, your logical inventory of your network that contains all of the parameters of topology, relationships, how ports are configured, what the VLANs are, where IP addresses live, and stuff like that. And a typical Excel sheet is not able to hold this, because there are relationships. Every network is different, so you're not able to build it yourself or maintain it. So the preparation step, where you can instantiate or create or change parameters to whatever you have, is a crucial aspect before you can generate it, then before you can push it, and you push it with a validation step. So these are the 4. There's a 5th one, which is called change orchestration. And this basically means, what is your preferred method on updating your database, updating your intended changes? This is one. Or there's an orchestration method to how you want to push it down to the network. So these are 2 different ways on orchestration. But orchestration is key because there are different ways to orchestrate. You can use a GUI and be as close to the CLI and actually push to the device and be able to get feedback. Or you can use an API if you're integrating this with an OSS system or an order system that will update the database, generate, push, and deploy. But you can also use a wizard or an import function, importing Excel, the data that you have or that you got from an inventory, from a discovery perspective. But the wizard, for example, is just a way that standardizes your specific process. So you can actually click through the wizard. It will update your intended changes into the database. and then it will create the desired configurations with the right scenarios to validate and push it out to the network. So 5 key processes, and I think that too much focus has been spent on thinking of network automation just from a push and validation perspective. And because of the fact that there are so many vendors out there that have their different approaches, if you think of Juniper or Arista, even Cisco, and you compare only those 3, they have different ways to commit jobs and do stuff on the final 2 steps. But once you get control over these first 3 steps, so you decide what is my preferred orchestration method, how and what way do I store my intended state information into the database, and where do I store the logic, call it templates and stuff, that will automatically generate the configurations that you desire, that you intended, and then use the right jobs with the right scenarios to push and validate at runtime to push it out to the network. So if you understand this concept, then you can start to see why it is possible that this will allow you to automate any type of network. And we're going to talk about how we do this design modeling and how we can instantiate it for your specific design, and then how you can use the tools to actually deploy and validate at runtime. But these are the 5 steps, and we're going to talk about in the training videos and in other videos to come. I hope this has been useful. It's just an introduction, so I'm going to be introducing you to specialists that have built this framework, that have been dealing with this for ages, right? I mean, I'm going to introduce you to Eric. Eric is my business partner in crime, but he's the brain. He's basically found a way that you don't need Python to build your own classes and instantiation and do it all in coding. He's built a GUI and a framework that allows all these processes to work together for any type of design. And I'm going to interview him, and we're going to talk about this concept about design-driven configs changes. How does he do this? How can he create these objects in the database that will specifically relate to your design and to your network, and make it easy to actually orchestrate and streamline these processes all together, so now you can use it for whatever use case you have. Because think of it, there are many, many different use cases. But you don't want to maybe use all of these processes. If you're just doing operational jobs to your network, use jobs and scenarios to basically automate deployment to your network, which is great. But there are also other steps to it. All right, just hang in there. We're going to talk much more in the upcoming episodes. But these are the 5. Validation, job automation, job generation, basically then preparing your job so you can actually have a central store of information and find the right orchestration methods that you desire for your process on how to streamline this. Cool. Hope you like it. I'll speak to you soon in another episode. Cheers.